What is this part of the Passé Composé? I mean, this one looks a little bit like the word marcher, and this one looks like the word attendre, I guess. But what in the world is this supposed to be? Well, you see, these are all examples of past participles in French. So pull up a chair, grab some notes, because today we're going to learn how to use them with the Passé Composé. My name is Kristen and welcome to Koala Hugs. If you're looking for help with learning French, English, tips on language learning in general, or just an all-around good time, then be sure to hit the notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. So to form the Passé Composé, you take a subject and you follow that with one of the auxiliary verbs, either être or avoir in the present tense. And then from there, you follow that up with the past participle of the verb you want to use. Whether you use être or avoir depends entirely on what that verb is you use for the past participle. So if you actually want to know more about that after watching this video, you can go to this link I put up there as well as down in the description because I make a video explaining all of that. The past participle, or in French, le participe passé, is something we use a lot in past tenses in French. It's kind of like the ed at the end of words in English because it helps indicate that whatever you're talking about is happening in the past. So every verb has one, and you really do just have to take the time to sit down and learn them. But there are a few patterns that I'm going to go over that will help you remember how some of them are spelled or how some of them are pronounced. Breaking this down, the easiest ones to remember are the regular verbs, which are most ER verbs. To form the past participle with these, you take the root of the verb, which in French we call the radical, and you add an E accent aigu to the end. Chanter becomes chanter, nager becomes nager, and even aller, which is almost always irregular, is normal for once here, and it's aller. Now for the next ones, I've seen some people teach it based on what are normal endings for IR and RE verbs before going into the irregular verbs. I'm not really going to do that because I've found there's so many irregular verbs here. It's hard to tell just by looking at these verbs if it's regular or not, because it might be regular all the other times. So instead, I will be breaking them down into categories of verbs that have similar sounding endings. And also note here that it might be confusing, but if I'm pronouncing how it ends, I'm going to be pronouncing it in French. So this letter is pronounced E, even if I'm saying ER verb endings. Sorry about that. First up, we've got the past participles that end in the letter U. As you can see, we have both IR and RE verbs scattered throughout this, but the first list is lire, boire, and other verbs that end in voir. And they tend to be short. Devoir becomes du, savoir becomes su, and pleuvoir becomes pleu. And then we have all of these words that have roughly similar endings, and they also all end in U for their past participle. After that, we have our past participles that end in the letter E. So we have these verbs, but we also have verbs like comprendre and apprendre, which end in ES. And then we have words like dire and écrire, which end in ET. And since it's French, all of these are pronounced as E. There's a few random ones that end in ERT, but then we get to the kings and queens of irregular verbs, être, avoir, and faire. Their past participles are été, eu, and fait. Something that can be a little confusing is the fact that all of these, and including être, use the auxiliary verb avoir with the passé composé. So if I was going to use être, it would be the subject, avoir, and then été, not subject, être, été, which is weird, yes, but that's how it works. So all of these are the past participles for some of the most common verbs that you'll use in French. And like I said, the best thing is really just to sit down and memorize them. And as you begin to learn more words, more vocabulary, with each new word, I suggest taking the time to look up what the past participle is for it and then just adding it to your repertoire. So the last thing you need to know here is that, well, if you know French, then you know things have to agree. And they agree in gender and in number. And so there is more to this, but I'm going to give it on the basic foundational level for now. But if you are using a past participle that needs the auxiliary verb avoir, then you don't need to worry about things agreeing. Like I said, it is a bit more complex than this, but when you're just starting off, this is a good thing to just start with. If you are using a past participle that needs the word être as its auxiliary verb, then you need to make sure that if your subject is plural, then you add an S to the end of your past participle. And if it is feminine, then you need to add an E at the end of your past participle. Also note here that this does not change how the word is pronounced phonetically. It will still sound the same. So that's the basics for past participles in French. If you want to know more on when to use être or avoir, or if you're trying to figure out when you use the passé composé or what it is exactly, then check out some of my videos. I made a few on them. There's a few subjects I haven't covered here, like what you do if you have a direct object that comes earlier in your sentence before your past participle, but I will be covering those in a future video. And with that, thank you for watching this video. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing as well as smashing that like button, leaving a comment, or sharing this with anyone else you know who's working on the Passé Composé in French. And with that, I hope you have an excellent day. Bye!